weapon. That's changed. I think it's been a harder sell and continues to be a harder sell that prevention is a better place to put your money. Although the tides are beginning to change somewhat. I mean, the Little Hoover Commission just completed a study about what we spend on prevention in the state compared to what we spend in incarceration, and there is no comparison really. But I think government agencies are starting to take a look. We just passed Proposition 21, which was a very punitive measure for locking kids up, and it's really interesting to me that the first challenge, the real major challenges to Prop 21 and incarcerating kids and treating kids as adults came from San Diego, where those 5 young men were going to be tried as adults for actually beating up migrants who are coming across the border. That's where the challenge came from, not from the community that's most impacted by this, which are the communities of color.
Well, tell us more about Prop 21. What does Prop 21 say?
Prop 21 says that for certain crimes, juveniles must be tried as adults, and essentially the biggest thing that it did was take the decision away from whether a child should be tried as an adult or a juvenile, took it away from the courts and gave it to the prosecutors.
Okay, are you familiar, can you tell us by what margin did that pass? Do you remember?
It was huge.
Okay.
It was huge. I mean, it was not close. People do want to extract their pound of flesh. They're frightened by kids. They're frightened by gang members. And the truth of the matter is gang members don't just randomly, for the most part, go around shooting up neighborhoods. They shoot rival gang members, and it's very specific and targeted. The problem is they have such firepower that often they're not even able to control the firepower they've got, and innocent victims get hit.
On the flip side of that, though, if a bullet comes flying through here and takes me out of the picture, I'm pretty much still just as dead.
You're right.
I mean, whether it's a 12-year-old or a 42-year-old.
Right.
So. Can you see the logic behind that at all, or do you think that that's do you think we've just gone overboard? I mean, I think there was a certain degree when the girls who in Orange County who were raped and the boyfriend's skull fractured, 2 were adults, 3 were juveniles. I don't know if the parent or the girls who were raped, if they see a difference in the rape from an adult or a child. So.
I understand, and I understand where people are coming from. My concern, however, is that once you put a youngster in adult prison, you've thrown them away. You have no hope of rehabilitation. The juvenile justice system was really designed to do some rehabilitation, and for the most part, juveniles still are able to be rehabilitated. Once you put them in adult prison, you're saying there is no hope for you, because what they learn is how to be much better criminals, how to be more violent, and most of those kids who get into adult prisons are going to be so brutalized and that if they ever come back out on the streets, they are really going to be very, very violent. So essentially, if you're going to put them in prison, then society needs to say, okay, we're washing our hands of these kids, we're throwing them away.
Now, we have a facility, or organization here in the West Valley here, Pacific Lodge Youth Services, that started out 75 years ago. I guess some judges and prosecutors and such got together as an alternative to traditional incarceration. Over time, they've expanded to foster services. Not only it used to be a boys' lodge, now it's youth services. They've gone to a variety of different phases of rehabilitation. What's happening, or what is your organization doing, or what is happening as far as the juvenile justice system and intervention? I mean, what's the spectrum there? What's going on?
Well, we work, a lot of members of the coalition are actually in the probation department, and we work with some of the probation camps. One of the organizations that's a member of the coalition, called Teens on Target, these are young people who mostly have spinal cord injuries, and these spinal cord injuries came from gunshot wounds. They have been trained, and many of them were gangbangers that have moved out of that. They have been trained in violence prevention strategies. They go into the camps and the juvenile justice facilities and work with kids and their families so that they try to provide the broad spectrum of services that I talked about, and to the families as well, so that when the kids get ready to come out, they really do have a support system to help them when they come out. We also have a group, you know, when you talk about if I was the parent of those kids, I don't know how I would feel. I mean, I really don't. But I do know that we have members, one group called Save Our Future. The woman who is the director of that has lost 2 children to gun violence. And, you know, to me, it's like, how do you get up in the morning after such a horrendous loss? She started a program called Save Our Future, and she's got a preschool, and she's got a lot of things going. And the other thing she does is try to help young men who come out of prison, help them find jobs, train them for jobs, and so forth. I mean, the forgiveness that people are able to muster is amazing to me. But the other point about it is for people to heal. For people to heal, the people who've been most effective and have had the best healing from losing a child or from having a horrendous thing happen to their child are those people who have been able to find a way to forgive.
Now, you mentioned that gang violence was an enormous factor in violence in general. What are some of the predictors or some of the things that people need to look for? Whether is it besides economics, is it school performance, school attendance, family support, whether it's the nuclear family or an extended family? What are the kinds of things that if you could go someplace and say, okay, here are the things we need to straighten out here to help this kid have a fair shake in things to help direct them away, what would some of those things be? All
of those things would be there. It would be help in schools. Most of the kids who join gangs don't do well in schools. They're mostly loners. The other thing that's very prevalent in their lives, because the kids I talk to have either been a victim or a witness to family violence. And often these are kids who've been abused themselves. So to take a public health approach to it, you have to deal with the root issue. So you've got to deal with domestic violence. And when children watch that, that's how they learn to behave. Every child needs a champion. They need somebody in their corner. Mentoring is a very important part of it. And you don't have to be some specialized type person to do mentoring. I mean, you can take a kid and teach them how to cook. You can just spend time just talking. Kids need somebody who really think that they're wonderful. And often these kids have nobody. And I actually heard something that it sort of struck me, and I had never thought about it this way before. It actually may have been an article I read in the LA Times, that the kids, they were talking about Santee High School and that young man who did the shooting there, that kids in the urban areas, when they don't fit in, when they're bullied, when they just don't belong and feel disenfranchised, they have no place to go if the school doesn't provide a lot of services. Kids in the inner city who feel that way join a gang. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting thing, because when you look at what goes on in our inner cities, we do not have the kind of school violence. When you look at the school violence that's happened across the country, it's primarily been in urban areas, rural areas. It's primarily been white youngsters. It's primarily been from a middle-class environment. And it's very different than the killings we have on our streets in our inner city every day. Nobody sort of shines a light on that. We lose the number of kids that were, at Columbine. We lose that in less than a month in Los Angeles County.
Wow, that's a kind of a chilling statistic.
It is.
How many kids do we lose every year?
Well, it's come down. It's gotten better. But if you just talk about guns, it's well over 200 that we use every year.
So that's essentially we could schedule a plane crash, a 747 at LAX once a year and do it in one fell swoop. And that might make more news.
Well, it would.
Yeah.
It would, because what we think people need to focus on is these kids who are dying are just not nobody.
Right.
The newspapers don't run their